Being a musician. Hello, everybody. This is episode 11 of Being a Musician podcast, and with me today we have Samara Jade, the traveling troubadour.
Hello. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for coming. Would you like to kick it off with a song?
I suppose that's the best way to do it. I listened to the silence till it was no longer silence. It was filled up with a bird song that had been there all along. Till it was filled up with a bird song that had been there all along. I looked into the sunset till it was no longer sunset. Till the sky grew darker and it filled on up with stars. Till the sky grew darker and it filled on up with stars that were there all along. It was there all along. It was there all along. The underlying unseen song. I stopped to smell the flowers till they were no longer flowers. They began to wilt and droop and develop into fruit that turned to seeds and back to flowers that had been there all along. And I searched the world for answers till they turned into questions that shone light upon the answers that had been there all along. They shone light upon the answers that had been there all along. It was there all along. It was there all along. It was there all along. The underlying unseen song. The light obscures the darkness while the darkness hides the light. And the stars are still shining when the sun is shining bright. Oh, how unimaginable, how many layers go unseen in this dream, in this dream. So much more than it seems in this dream, in this dream. So much more than it seems. I felt into my sadness till it was no longer sadness. It was filled up with fullness that had been there all along. Till it was filled up with fullness that had been there all along. And I cut through my aloneness till I melted into oneness of the web of shining dewdrops that connects us all as one into the web of shining dewdrops that has been there all along. Yeah, it was there all along. It was there all along. It was there all along. The underlying unseen song. The underlying unseen song. Oh, the underlying unseen song. I spoke my words till they were no longer words, till they sounded no different than songs sung by the birds. Still sing you when they can't be heard. All of the symphonies get blurred into the colors of the world is turning, powered by the bird song that had been there all along. Yes, the great wave of bird song that had been there all along. Haven't you heard that wave Okay.
Samara,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for having me here.
It's been exciting to have you in Florida jamming again after all these years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
So glad.
We played the open mic last night.
Yeah. It was great. It was really fun to collaborate with you, Flint. Always loved jamming. So
Yeah.
grateful to be here. And yeah, I love coming down to Florida in the winter. It's a nice break from the cold and get to play shows and eat coconuts, go to the beach.
Yeah. Getting loco for coconuts.
Uh-huh.
So, I'm going to give the audience a little introduction and tell them about about you as I see you.
Okay.
I think you were just
Curious.
that song that you sang, Wave of Birdsong. I think you were just in the middle of working on that album when I met you.
Probably.
Because it was
Yeah.
that album wasn't out
Yeah.
yet, but then shortly after that it was out.
Right.
Yep.
That's right.
So we met. Maybe you were just looking for shows in Florida. I think that's what happened, right? I must have just reached out and just said, "Let's do a house concert."
Yeah, I think maybe we were already Facebook friends or we had met like once up in Asheville, but we'd never really hung out. And then you offered to do a house show for
Yeah.
me here, and that was like 5 years ago or something. I don't remember.
Something like that.
It's been a while.
Some number of years. Yeah. And since then, you were living in Asheville at the time, but then you relocated to Washington State, the Olympic Peninsula,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And so since then, you've been doing a lot of music work out there. You recorded a whole nother album while you're out there, right?
Yeah, I was living in Arcata, California at the time when I recorded my last album, Zero. I happened to be there when the COVID lockdown hit, and I happened to be staying at a artist community in Arcata called The Sanctuary, and they had a little recording studio there. I was just supposed to be there for a few weeks doing a little artist residency, but then lockdown hit, and so I got to stay there for a few months, and it was the biggest COVID blessing I could have potentially ever imagined, because not only did I get to stay there for a few months, but I got to record my album there and got to really lean into doing the production myself, or mostly myself, which is something I'd been wanting to learn how to do, but never thought I would actually be good at it. And then when I was given the reins and a recording studio to work on it, I realized, oh my gosh, this is really fun. I would stay up all night and get really geeking out on adding parts and playing all these instruments and adding layers and watching many YouTube videos on how to use Logic Pro. And then, yeah, a month and a half later, I had finished the album. So
Yeah. Well, I would say you did a great job, picking up the craft of recording, because the whole album Zero sounds immaculate.
oh, thank you.
I mean, professional AF,
That's what I was going for.
But you probably let somebody else do like the mastering or something.
I did the mixing, but yeah, I had somebody else do the mastering
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Well, the mixing is a huge part of it, obviously. So nicely done, Samara.
Thanks. It was a lot of just trial and error, not
Yeah.
really knowing what the heck I was doing. But trust in my ears,
So would you consider that your fourth album?
I guess so, technically. I have two albums. My first two albums, I don't really... Well, let's put it this way. My first album, I don't even put out on my merch table anymore. It's 10 years, or maybe even more than 10 years old at this point, and I'm not...
Key of C?
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
particularly proud of it.
So y'all,
It's
you
a little
gotta...
embarrassing.
You're gonna have to dig deep to find the Key of C.
Oh gosh, I think it might still be on my Bandcamp. I think about taking it down all the time, but then I'm like, well, I don't know. I have people who tell me that they still like it. I'm like, really? I've made so much better stuff since then, but okay.
I think
yeah,
Bandcamp is the place for
the archives.
the archives,
Yeah.
because it's not really, it doesn't get promoted socially that much.
Right.
It's kind of like you got to find it.
Totally.
if
I
it's
don't have
there.
any of that on Spotify or anything, but yeah.
But on Spotify, you have two albums.
Yes, 2.5, I guess. I put half of my second album
Oh,
up on
okay.
there. I put because again, the second album, I'm like, there's moments of it I'm proud of, but overall, it's like not quite as as good quality wise as the latter two albums I've made. So, but there are a few heavy hitters on there that people want, like my song "The Church of Fermentation" is an often requested one. So I'm like, well, I gotta put that one up on Spotify so people can listen to it. And there's a couple others like that. So one that will play later in this show.
Like the idea of curating your web presence in that way, I feel like that's kind of a common thread with musicians as they go along. They look at their earlier stuff and they're like, oh, geez.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way. Like, my first two albums are not on Spotify, but even the one that came after that, which I consider like my new first album, I still consider like, oh man, I just wish, I wished all of that wasn't there. But, I know that there's people that are still listening to it.
That's a funny thought, right?
yeah, but they like it. There's a reason. And then I think of like, I have another friend who did something like that. Like he just put out, I think he just put out a single on a label recently, and I went on Spotify and all of his previous material was all gone.
Oh,
and I'm such a fan of this guy. I'm like, geez, dude, like, I know there's a reason for this, your label probably said this was a good idea, but like, I want to hear it still.
Yeah, the artists, I think as artists, we're always our own biggest critics. Often, not always. I've definitely had bigger critics.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Is that possible?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've faced so much rejection just in like, applying to everything from songwriting competitions to gigs to festivals to Spotify playlists. Like, 99.9999999% of it is rejection. I feel like very few things land with people.
Well, I guess I would want to discern between rejection and criticism.
That's true. That's a good point.
Did they just say sorry, or did they say sorry, we can't have you because
you suck? Sometimes that. I mean, maybe not quite as direct as you suck, but I don't know. Like recently, I was just doing a big push and trying to submit songs through Submit Hub, the website, which is a great platform and great website for submitting songs to like music blog curators and Spotify curators. And so I was just doing a big push of that, trying to get more of my music heard and on playlists and things. And I probably did about 70 or so of them. It took me like 2 whole days of just writing to curate, and not a single one accepted any of my songs. And they all give you feedback too, which is the cool thing. And most of it was like, oh, it's too old-fashioned, or this or that, or
old-fashioned.
I don't know. I'm like, I guess I'm old-fashioned.
That's
I'm not modern. I don't have the modern sound that they're looking for. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I could afford to put more beats in my music.
Sure.
I'm just a little humble folky, That's my roots, and I do love music production and layering and adding things, but I think maybe ultimately my true colors are shining through. I'm a folk artist, and that's not, cool for the people who are making, indie folk Spotify music playlists or whatever. But it's hard because I don't really fit into any categories. I fit into lots of different categories depending on which song I'm playing, which, helps me and hurts me in other ways, because it helps in that I'm very versatile and kind of a chameleon of a musician and can find music to play in almost any setting, from around a campfire to like a fancy wine bar. And got a big repertoire of different sounding things I can pull out, but it makes it harder because it's more confusing to find my what is my sound? What is my quintessential Samara Jade sound? It's like, it's a little complicated. It's a little all over the map.
Yeah, I can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming from with many musical influences, it's kind of just like a big collage of sound, and I feel like my music has gotten more cohesive as the years have gone on, but like I said, it's still a little bit all over the map.
Yeah. Well, I think a sound that might be modern today, you might look back 5 or 10 years and it might sound dated by then, Anyway, so I feel like to chase like the contemporary sound is one thing, but I feel like ultimately you just have to find what is authentic to you.
Absolutely.
And that's the type of stuff that has lasting value.
I'm really glad you said that. That's always a good reminder. It's just like, oh yeah, wait, why do I actually make music? Like, when I boil it down, in essence, it truly is just about self-expression and authentic self-expression. And if I'm not staying true to that, if I'm like chasing after making music that's commercial and like, sure, there's a place for that. Like, yeah, maybe I do want to make some music that, gets more millions of streams and can make me more than a few dollars a month or whatever. Like, yeah, there's value in that intention. But overall, when I come back to it, it's like I have to remember why I make music, why I'm doing this in the first place. And it's certainly not to make money or be famous at all, really. It's my way of processing the world and my emotions and life and experiences and expressing them and sharing them out into like a nugget of distilled wisdom and experience.
A soy nugget.
Hopefully not a soy nugget.
A real, free range organic chicken nugget.
In the shape of a dinosaur.
How about a gold nugget?
Gold.
Your songs are like nuggets of gold.
I'll take that.
Okay.
Yeah, nuggets of labradorite or some cool crystal.
Yeah.
Oh God, I hope my songs are not like soy nuggets.
I hope mine aren't either.
No, they're definitely not.
No, if my song was a nugget, it might be made of jackfruit and chickpea flour.
That sounds good. Where can I find that?
There's a good vegan spot in Del Rey.
Oh, nice.
With fried chicken. That's what it's made of. Chickpea and jackfruit.
Okay, wow, fried chicken. Songs are like fried chicken. Where are we going with that?
Well, I think that I want you to tell me about your musical origin story.
Sure.
From the beginning. When did you start singing? And then tell me like when did you start to think that music could be a strong part of your life?
Totally. Yeah, there's many facets of that story. My first instrument, as my parents like to say, was the pots and pans.
Yeah.
As in I would just spend hours meticulously taking out every single pot and pan out of the kitchen cabinet and banging on them and like seeing what sound they make and everything. And so that was my first instrument, I suppose. But then, yeah, sometime in my early childhood, I took piano lessons, classical piano, probably as like a 7, 8, 9-year-old. I don't know. I don't remember. And I don't think I didn't not enjoy it, but it wasn't like, blowing my mind or anything. But I guess I always did like music enough that I remember distinctly when I was in second grade, we all, I don't know, in some unit when we were studying Native Americans, and, of course now this is like probably not a PC thing to do, but we all had to choose our like Native American names, for the unit. And I chose mine as music maker. And so something in me then, I guess, knew that was my role in this life, was to be music maker.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And then I guess when I was like 11 or so, this was really the pivot point for me, was discovering, believe it or not, the music for the Broadway musical, the soundtrack to Rent, by Jonathan Larson. And it totally blew my mind. It was like the first music that I remember hearing that I was like, I love this music. I like remember just like loving the chord progressions of it and the lyrics, everything. I was just like, wow, really moved by it. And over the next decade or so, I was obsessed with that musical. Of course, knew every single word to it and saw it on Broadway multiple times and did reenactments with my friends in my parents' basement for the video camera of our own performances of Rent. And yeah, that was like the first time I remember really loving music, and I got the piano book for it and discovered, because I could already play some piano from taking lessons at that point. But it was the first time I discovered like, oh, playing music is actually really fun if you play music that you like, that I like. Which was a revelation for me, because before that I was just playing whatever my piano teacher put in front of me, so it wasn't like a self-directed thing. But then after that I would just get piano books of whatever artists I was like. I loved the Beatles, and I loved, soon after that I was really getting into classic rock, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Yes, once I discovered my dad's record collection. And sometime in that time period, I started playing guitar instead of piano, and found I could play a lot more of the music I liked on the guitar than I could the piano. So that was just like, boom, I was just on a roll then. And yeah, I was never that great at reading music, but I found that I could just figure stuff out by ear really easily. I would sit there with my little Walkman and remember those? And just press rewind on like Led Zeppelin guitar solos over and over again, and just figure stuff out.
Nice.
And yeah, had a really great music teacher, guitar teacher in high school for a few years that I would go to his studio, and he would just be like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do today? And I would kind of alternate. Sometimes I'd do piano lessons. Sometimes I'd do guitar lessons. Sometimes I'd do bass lessons. It was just, he was like super chill and laid back, and he played everything. So I felt like that definitely shaped me, and as a multi-instrumentalist, and just kind of like learning music and applying it to different instruments. And that's still something I still love to do. I'm always trying to learn a new instrument. So to push my edges.
Is Chapman Stick going to be next?
I don't know. I remember I picked up that thing last time I was here, and I was like, this is a whole new
Well, I've got two of them
alphabet.
now. I can give you a lesson.
Okay. Maybe. I've got my bandwidth pretty full right now with learning the viola. That's been my major project for the last year.
Nice.
I've always wanted to learn a boat instrument, so finally doing that. But anyways,
A boat instrument.
Bowed instrument.
Gonna play viola on the boat?
Yeah, I actually have before. Several times. But yeah, to rein it back to the original question of like, yeah, when did I want to think there was something significant with music? Definitely all throughout my teenage years, with Rent and all the other music I was loving and getting into. Somewhere amid that, I started writing songs, and I don't really remember any of the songs I wrote in that period, which is probably a good thing because they probably sucked. But, that's one of the things when people ask me for songwriting advice is like, oh, you have to write a lot of really shitty songs before you write any good ones. So I definitely wrote, more than my share of shitty songs. I still do all the time. Most of the songs that, I write don't ever get heard by others because it's just something you got to do. Just keep writing.
Yeah.
And you'll find some gems in there. But yeah, I always made up songs. I think that was a thing I did when I was a kid.
Like without even an instrument?
Or with an instrument, or without. Like, I was always like making parody songs when I was a kid, and just like making songs up in the moment. And like, I don't think I ever like consciously did that. It just kind of happened.
Right.
So
that happens to me most in the kitchen. I think when I'm like preparing food and stuff, I can just sing about anything goofy. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll start singing about it, and it'll just happen effortlessly.
That's how you write songs.
Right.
Make up songs about like dumb shit.
But most of that type of stuff never sees the light of day.
Yeah, exactly, and that's okay. It's just part of your process. Yeah, so I guess I don't know what more to say about that question. I did, I kind of inadvertently ended up getting a scholarship for Berklee College of Music, which cemented I guess I'm doing this music thing. I say inadvertently.
You got a scholarship?
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't actually even mean to. It was kind of a funny story. I just attended when I was, I guess, going into my senior year of high school, I attended like a 5-day guitar camp at Berklee, and that was like a big deal. I was like, whoa, to get to do that. And they had like little auditions at the beginning of the week to like place you into your class for the week or something. And what I didn't realize, or I guess no one realized, is that was also like a screening or audition for scholarships, and at the end of the week, they awarded a couple people with scholarships to go to Berkeley. And that was like a total surprise and shock for me at the time, because I didn't think that I was a particularly good musician, but I guess they saw something in me that had potential and awarded me with that scholarship, which was really funny because I, at the time, was not planning on going to college. I was like very much into following my own path, and everybody around me was applying to Ivy League schools, and I was just like, I don't want anything to do with this. I want to go build a cabin in the woods, and that was sort of the trajectory I was on.
So you were already thinking about cabins in the woods.
Always, always, yeah. Henry David Thoreau was like my hero at the time. It was like, I just want to go live out in the woods, and I had been working my summers as working on trail crews out in the wilderness, so that had already been like a part of my life, and I didn't see myself like going to college, let alone in a city. So I hadn't even applied to any colleges yet. But then when I got that scholarship, I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to music school in Boston. Like, too good of an opportunity to pass up. And I did. I ended up dropping out a year later. I thought I would go back. I dropped out because I wanted to just like live and travel and experience life, not in college. And I always thought I would go back, but I ended up not. I ended up going back to school a couple years later for environmental studies down in North Carolina, which is how I ended up down there. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of like rambling now.
Yeah.
So rein me back in.
It's okay. I would like to know about your songwriting practice. Do you have like a daily practice where every day you're making yourself do this?
Oh God, I wish. And you know, when I'm doing well and in an ideal world, yes, I do try to do something every day.
Obviously, you've been traveling a lot.
Yeah, and I'm trying to close that chapter in my life and not travel so much. Although I do find that when I travel, I do end up writing songs. But yeah, my songwriting practice is pretty sporadic. Like, sometimes I'll go months without writing a song, and I used to kind of freak out and be like, what's wrong with me? Have I written all my good songs? Have I lost my power? And then it's not true. Like, it's just, it comes in phases is what I find. So, like, for instance, at the first few months of the COVID quarantine lockdown was definitely the most creatively fruitful period of my life. I recorded that album, and then like a couple months after that, I was just living in my van and just doing a lot of like backpacking, and you know, I couldn't play gigs because everything was shut down. So I was like, well, I'll just spend more time in nature. And I wrote so many songs in that period because I think I was just like fully allowing myself and giving myself space to be creative. And so it was a very fruitful time. But I don't know, I tend to like go in and out of phases of focusing on other things. So yeah, I'm not really in much of a songwriting phase right now. But every once in a while, I'll get, as I like to say, like a song or a melody will pounce on me and be like, write me. And then I have no choice. So that's great when those moments come, but I usually can't force them. Yeah. But at the same time, I do believe, and this is advice that I give anyone who wants to be a songwriter, and I'm not always so great at following this, but sometimes I am better than others, is that it's really great to get into the practice of writing regularly. Mm-hmm. Even if you're like not, even if you have a song idea, to just like flesh it out and see where it goes, because it could surprise you, you know? And a lot of the time it might not turn into anything that's like a keeper or shareable, but that's okay, because it's like you're going to the gym to work out your muscles. It's like keeping your songwriting muscles in shape so that when you do get hit by a wave of inspiration, you're like strong enough to catch it and have the tools to be able to shape and craft a song. And that's what, to me, songwriting, it works particularly well in my brain as somebody who really kind of like balances science and art in a lot of different realms of my life, and like the logic and thinking, and then like free form and intuition is like, those are both really strong the balance of those is strong in my brain and the way I think and operate. So like what I love about songwriting is that you kind of need both. I mean, sure, there are people who just like fully channel and download songs just out of thin air. I'm not one of those people. For me, it takes that, but it also takes the crafting and that takes time. Sometimes it could be as short as like a few hours, and then I'll have a song, and it feels like a combination of like, wow, I just got hit by this like wave of inspiration and something is coming through me, but I also like have to use my logical brain and my knowledge and music theory and songwriting structure and technique to craft this into a song. And so oftentimes most of my songs end up being kind of a balance of those, because if I was just operating from a place of like, you know, songwriting structure and form and technique and music theory, I feel like my songs would lack the magic and the spark that they often do that keeps me wanting to play them. But if they were just, you know, the channeled thing, maybe they wouldn't be like a full-on song. It would just be kind of like a whimsical idea that didn't really have chords beneath it or like a verse chorus structure. And so yeah, to me, it's just like this amazing process of finding both of those things.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
I think the vast majority of my songs are at least started as just that little thing that snuck into my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how and where do those come from? That's the mystery. Like
That's the magic.
That's the magic. And that's the part that's harder to teach or explain or control. But I certainly do know, for me, that I can keep those coming more often if I'm just continuing to, a few different things, I think, that keep those sparks coming for me is one, if I'm really committed and continuing to work on self-growth and personal growth and like peeling away layers of conditioning within myself and finding patterns and, melting down walls and barriers and opening my heart more and like all the ways in which I engage in self-growth and those processes keeps the songs flowing, because the songs kind of come almost as like a way to help me solidify the lessons that I'm trying to learn. It's like kind of like a mantra I like to say is like, okay, I write the songs that I need to sing to remind myself of like the things I'm learning. So I think that's a big part of it is that if I'm feeling kind of stagnant in my like self-growth and spirituality areas of my life, then like generally the songs aren't flowing. But if I'm like going through periods of like big expansion and cracking open and breaking open and evolution, like that's when those sparks of songs are going to come. So I'd say that's number one. And then number two, and this is not in any hierarchical order, they're both important, is spending time in nature, because that's, for me personally, the thing that helps me feel literally the most grounded and connected to, I say grounded, but I also mean just like connected to the great mystery, to the oneness, to the earth. And yeah, I spend a lot of time, especially since I've been living on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington. I've spent a lot of time in the wilderness, backpacking, doing long distance hikes. And when I get into these deep into the woods, high up in the mountains, remote places is oftentimes where I just feel the layers peel away in myself enough to just like really hear what's inside, or like I can't tell if it's coming from inside of me or inside of the rivers or inside of the trees, or just kind of collaboration between all of those things.
Where is the heart of the source?
I know you're asking me that question as a lead into the next song I'm going to play, and that's perfect because, yeah, that's exactly the question, is to write the songs that are the most authentic expression of my soul. It's like I have to get to those places that are, there's nothing in the way between me and source. And so this song that I will play, which is called Heart of the Source, is exactly that. I'll tell a little backstory. When I first moved to the Olympic Peninsula, so we went and camped up at Heart Lake, which is one of the headwater source lakes of the Duckerbush River. And as I was up there, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the source of the Song River. So I have to write a song up here. And I had lugged my mandola up the mountain with me and was playing around for a while before all of a sudden this melody just hopped into my fingers, and it just felt like it was just it just came right out, fully formed. The whole music for the song. Took me many months to write the lyrics, but that's often my process, is like something will come right away, and then the rest of it will take a while.
Yeah.
Very rarely do like music and lyrics come out at the same time, but I knew this song was going to be about the heart of the source, because there I was at Heart Lake and the source of this river. So this is the song that emerged from that. High on up in the mountains, the shimmering crystalline river is born. Snow slowly melts as it's kissed by the sun, and tendrils of rivulets merge into one, forming the heart of the source. I've been hearing her singing. Her songs are like old friends calling me home, pulled by perpetual melodies hum. I've been walking for days through the mountains. I've come to drink from the heart of the source. Up on the mountain, high above the clouds, there is a fountain where nature knows no bounds. Songs pour like diamonds right out of the ground, where the heart of the source can be found. I follow the song of the river like bright silver flying fish. The tunes hop on out. It's for unfettered expression of soul that I yearn. I've come to your headwaters so I can learn to sing from the heart of the source. Up on the mountain, high above the clouds, there is a fountain where nature knows no bounds. Songs pour like diamonds right out of the ground, where the heart of the source can be found. Light da 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 da, light da 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 da, light da 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 da. When my time heart its last beat. The miraculous gift of this flesh and bone sack. I'll lay me on down, and I'll give it all back to return to the heart of the source. If ever there was such an Eden, with meadows of berries and rainbows of flowers, and the spiraling fruit of a hermit's thrush. Oh, I've come all this ways just to praise and to gush and give thanks at the heart of the source. Up on the mountain, high above the clouds, there is a fountain where nature knows no bounds. Songs pour like diamonds right out of the ground, where the heart of the source can be found.
All right. Thank you, Samara.
Yeah,
That was beautiful.
thanks so much. Glad to share that song.
Kind of has like almost like a sea shanty kind of feel to it. Am I in the ballpark?
Totally. Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Irish music the last couple of years. I got bit by the Irish bug, and I mean, I've always, I think it's kind of always been a subconscious music influence of mine, but I started more consciously listening to it and learning Irish music. It's funny, I don't actually have a drop of Irish blood in me that I know of, but I just absolutely love and adore Celtic music, and it's snaked its way into my songs for sure. So especially since picking up the mandola, it's just been a really great instrument for jigs and reels and all those things. So yeah. So I take that as a compliment. I love sea shanties too.
Well, I love the thing about music that, you know, to me, it's okay to adopt other musical cultures. Mm-hmm. You know, like as a as a Floridian white boy, I love reggae and I love playing reggae. And I think that's totally fine.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people have really strong opinions about that, and I think there's some fine lines about, you know, what is okay. But I think for the most part, like, yeah, music is so universal that, like, of course, that's a beautiful thing that we can play and enjoy and listen to music from other cultures and in this day and age. Like, think about even just like, you know, 100 years ago or so, that wasn't really as much of a thing before recorded music.
Right.
Like, can you imagine that? Like,
Yeah.
not being exposed to all the music that we are now. And so I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And isn't that what brings us all together?
Theoretically.
I think so.
Right?
I think so.
I think so too. Yeah.
Well, you know, tell us what's new in your musical world. What's late and what's to come.
Yeah.
I know you've been having some struggles.
Yeah, it's been a weird time for me as a musician. Obviously, you know, the pandemic has made it hard to be a touring musician. Not that I haven't gigged at all. I've actually gigged quite a bit, mostly doing outdoor stuff. And so that's been great, but it's not been a reliable thing. And then, about a year and a half ago, my body started to tell me that it was not a reliable thing either for me to keep playing music. Out of the blue one day, I woke up and my voice was gone. And it was really strange. At first, I just figured, oh, maybe I'm getting sick or sore throat, but didn't come back for like for weeks. And I couldn't figure out what it was. I wasn't sick. I hadn't done anything that would have like used my voice a lot. This is, mind you, several months into the pandemic, so it's not like I had been gigging or overusing my voice. I hadn't screamed or shouted, or there was nothing that quote unquote happened to cause me to lose my voice. But it was gone, and it was really confusing and hard. And I started going to a whole series of doctors, and eventually went to a ear, nose, throat doctor who scoped my vocal cords and could see this tiny, vocal folds are very, very tiny things. They're what vibrates to make sound. And on one of my vocal folds, I have a little tiny dot they were able to see. It just looks like a little red dot, but it's what they called a bleb, or a blood vessel lesion, which is kind of mysterious how it forms, and it's benign. It's not cancerous or anything, but basically it makes one of my vocal folds slightly bigger than the other, so they don't vibrate together correctly. And so when I try to sing up high, you may not have noticed this because I've been singing songs in my lower register, but I used to sing up high quite a bit, be somewhat of a soprano, and I haven't been able to do that really hardly at all for the last year and a half. When I start to sing up high, it's just there's nothing there. It makes this crazy sound, which you don't want to hear. It sounds a little bit like a robot. But anywho, so that's been a huge, major theme of my life the last year and a half, has been healing that. And in the meanwhile, I've continued to play music. I've definitely put a lot more effort into my being an instrumentalist. I feel like I've gotten way better at the mando because of that. And like I said before, I've been picking up the viola, so that's been cool too. But it's been really sad for me to not be able to sing. I mean, again, not like I haven't been able to sing, but I really do have about 50% of my voice. So it's been incredibly frustrating, and to say the least. If I start to think about it too much, I'll start to cry. It brings up a lot of grief for me to not be able to like do the thing that I love to do. But it's been very unpredictable because there's been waves and periods where it's been all right, like almost back to normal, and then I'll wake up again and it'll be gone for like no apparent reason. Sometimes it does go away for apparent reasons. Like if I do overuse my voice, it will go away. And if I don't sleep well, it'll, that will take its toll on it. If I'm around a fire, breathing in smoke, that will do its toll on it. So there are like things that I know that are influencing it, but also sometimes I'll just wake up and it'll be gone and I won't be able to sing for like a month or so. So all of that is to say that it's, and it's definitely led me on, it's uncovered. There's more than, I could do a whole podcast about this, just about the healing journey of this and all of the psycho, spiritual, emotional things and tendrils that it's led me down, all the roads of healing so many things. So like ultimately I don't want to say I'm grateful, but I kind of am. I'm still not quite in the phase where, I'm through it and I'm like, oh, I'm glad this happened because it, has taught me this and this and that. But it's definitely teaching me a lot. It's teaching me a lot about how to use my voice better, how to speak my truth better, how to live my truth better. And also, like, one of the biggest messages I'm taking away from it, there's several things, but is to other ways of finding my voice in the world. Like, I've been heavily relying on performing and singing, and it's been such a big part of my identity that losing this has been this like identity, soul-crushing identity crisis of not knowing who I am. So it's kind of like nudging me in other directions. And which is something I was asking for anyways. And I got it in not a way that I would have thought or wanted. But basically, for a long time, I have been not fully satisfied as a performing musician, feeling like there's something else that I'm not tapping into that I'm supposed to be doing in this life. And I'm not sure what it is. And I'm still not sure what it is, but I feel like I get closer and closer to it every day. And something that I've been leaning into more, exploring, two things, and they're kind of interrelated. One is more the audio engineering and recording side of things, not only doing it for myself, but starting to offer it for other people. And the other, intertwined with that, is kind of, I don't know what to call it, so I haven't really put it out there, but people have been seeking it from me, which, is a good sign. But basically, in essence, like songwriting coaching, helping people who are, have some sort of creative block in their creative songwriting process. Like maybe they're the kind of person that, gets like channels songs really easily, but they don't know how to like craft them and structure them. And so I've had a number of people reach out to me that I've been doing sessions with to really help them bring their song ideas down into the physical form and organize them and structure them and to get them to the point where they could record them on an album. And so I guess part of what I want to call it is like, it's kind of like song doula-ing or like song midwifery.
Yeah.
So that's been a thing that's been just naturally emerging that feels really resonant with my passions and skill sets and something that I can offer. And it feels like it's going to be a big part of my work in the years to come. So I'm trying to get clear on that right now. And yeah, again, like stuff like this is really only coming because I'm up against this wall of like, oh, this realization of I can't actually rely on being a full-time musician and performer anymore. Like the world is telling me no. My body is literally telling me no, which is heartbreaking. But, I'm trying to reroute the river, being like, okay, well, it's just asking me to go a different direction. And this is a direction that feels resonant. So it's a big, it's a big question mark. It's a big mystery. I don't know if or when I'll be able to sing fully again. I'm doing a lot right now. A lot of big changes in my life that I'm hoping will be beneficial trying to be more stable and have a more stable place to live, I think is a big part of it, rather than for most of the last few years I've been moving around a lot, living out of my van, nature bum.
I like the songwriting coaching idea.
Cool. Yeah, every time I mention it to anybody, they're like, oh, I want that. That sounds great.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I think I'm onto something here. I just don't quite know how to spin it yet. So I haven't like put it out to the world yet, but when people reach out to me about it, or if I know people individually who are looking for that kind of thing, I do offer it. So, yeah.
I have an acquaintance who's doing something similar. Just announced an electronic producer named Living Light. Mm-hmm. Eartha Harris is her name, but she goes by Living Light. Huh. And she was already doing like nutrition coaching and lifestyle coaching like that for a while, like in groups online. But now she's opening up for basically like production coaching and like,
amazing.
Everybody can. I think it's like $10 a month. She's just like $10 a month, and you can just, if you want me to listen to your song, I'll like listen to your song, give you feedback. We can meet together as a group online and share ideas. So. Similar kind of idea.
That's awesome. I'd love to connect with her.
Yeah. For electronic stuff specifically. She doesn't sing, but
that realm of things, because I know a lot of people that like come out with this amazing, or come through channel amazing song ideas, but then just don't know what to do with them, or even if they do, then they don't know. Like I've been doing some sessions with a friend who's I think is a great songwriter, but she doesn't really play instruments and just has like no idea about how to like go from these songs that come through to an album. So I'm working with her on that process right now, and it's really satisfying for me because I'm like, oh, I know how to do those things. So yeah,
totally. Well, changing gears perhaps. I want to ask you about your spiritual inclinations towards music, if you have any.
Yeah.
Do you find music to be spiritual?
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like I kind of already tapped into this a little bit in telling about the songwriting process, which inherently is a spiritual practice for me. Or it's inseparable from my spiritual practice. It's like I said, songwriting is like my way of connecting with source, processing emotions and life and grief and love and, all the things that we get to experience as a human being. Like, songwriting and music are literally my ways of like holding all of that and putting it into song. And so in that way, I feel like, yeah, songwriting is definitely my spiritual practice for that. And as I mentioned before, spending time in nature is pretty much the most spiritual thing I can imagine doing, because it's just the earth and her purest essence and purest form. When I am in an old growth forest, which is why I absolutely love the Olympic Peninsula, it's just filled with just vast expanses of wild rivers and snow-capped, glacier-capped mountains and old growth cedar and Doug fir trees. It's just like, oh, that's the earth when she's fully allowed to express herself. When she's not, when the forests aren't cut down or paved with parking lots or roads or factories or whatever. It's just like when I'm in nature like that, it feels like, oh, nature is like my greatest role model in self-expression and authentic expression. And so learning to tap into that energy and make music that's just like praising and celebrating and thanking that energy and that source energy. And that's like what we all emerge from. We all come from the earth. Everything that we've ever eaten or, anything in our life is from the earth. So like, to me, that's the biggest divine force that I could possibly imagine. And writing songs and singing songs, playing music is the way that I connect with and give back to and thank and praise that source energy. So
Yes.
if I'm really tapping into it and feeling into it, it's an incredibly spiritual thing. And I forget that sometimes. And I think that's also part of the voice stuff that I'm dealing with, is like to slow me down and like get me back to the essence of why I play music. And really, when I boil it down to its essence, it's like, oh yeah, it is like, it's my way of connecting with the divine. So yeah, to me, music is absolutely inseparable from spirituality.
Yeah. To me, I think inspiration itself, I think it's intrinsically spiritual by its essence. And even the root word of inspire is spirit,
Right.
which came from a Latin word.
Isn't it connected with breath?
Yeah.
Inspirar is like to breathe in, or
It's
to
the Latin word
respirate.
for breathing.
Respirar.
So when you're conspiring with someone, you're breathing together.
Whoa.
Isn't that interesting that they all wanted us to not breathe together?
Uh-huh.
But we don't need to get down that road. But
that's definitely.
I think words are important,
powerful.
and I like to look at the root words and what these words came from, from the first place. So
Absolutely, yeah. I'm a huge fan of learning about etymology and words. So. Yeah.
So what about improvisation? What do you think about improvisation?
Well, that's actually a really amazing segue, because a number of years ago I looked up the origins of the word improvisation. When I still sometimes will do this, but for a number of years I would teach vocal improv, or I'd call them vocal exploration classes, workshops. And one of the things I would do is talk about the word improvisation, because a lot of times when people like who are, not trained musically or whatever, they are put on the spot to do music improvisation. It's a really scary thing, So we'd like talk about what is improvisation. And I might be getting this wrong, but I can't remember the exact origin of the word it comes from, but basically like the Latin and or Greek origins of the word improvisation means unforeseen, or to not prepare for, basically. And so it's like to improvise is to not prepare for the unforeseen. And I think that is such a great life skill, of course, music, but like everything else, like in reality, like everything is unknown in life. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And to be able to just like improvise in life and roll with the punches with grace is like one of the most important life skills. And I think that you can, learning and practicing music improvisation is a great way to practice that life skill on a grander way. But especially with music and especially with your voice, I feel like it's a very vulnerable thing to be doing improv with your voice and to not know what's going to come out, whether you're freestyling or making up a song in the moment. And it can be a really amazing practice, and it's scary because you're always pushing an edge. You're always riding the crest of the unknown.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's exhilarating and it's terrifying, and I absolutely love musical improvisation instrumentally too. I love to take solos
with groups or with people
or by myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially with people, and that's the other thing that leads me back to just improvisation in essence. Like what we're doing right now, having a conversation, is improvisation because we don't know what we're going to say or what's going to emerge in this conversation. So when people get freaked out about improvisation, I'm like, oh, what we're doing right now is improvisation. Like you don't know what you're going to say. So we all have it. We all have the ability to improvise. It's just like a matter of shedding away the layers that block us from being able to do that. And oftentimes I think those layers are just comprised of the like, oh, I'm not good enough voices, or maybe things that people told you when you were younger about like, oh, you're not a good singer, or whatever like stories we have about ourselves not being a good musician or not being good at making things up. Those tend to be get calcified into these hard walls that are like hard to peel away. But I think it's a practice. The more that you can push that edge and ride the crest of the unknown and practice improvising music, practice not knowing what's going to come out next, I think the more that you can get rid of those walls.
Yeah, you got to decalcify your pineal gland.
Something like that.
And then you'll be able to improvise better. Some people get freaked out about it trying to musically improvise.
It's true.
I've heard guitarists, especially if they're into like progressive rock or metal or anything like that, really technical stuff. They say like, "Oh, I only solo. I only play written solos."
Whoa. Yeah, or classical. People who are classically trained, I find that a lot. Like a lot of people who grew up playing classical piano or classical violin and then are like gradually trying to like break down those like strict regimented walls or ways so that they can actually learn to improvise.
I think just the academic institution of music in general is kind of it kind of dampens the improv spark.
Definitely.
As far as I've seen in academia, anytime that they're teaching improvisation, it's a very regimented way of improvising.
It's true. Yeah, I was definitely in the like jazz guitar world for a bit, especially when I was at Berkeley. Learned a lot of music theory. Like, not saying any of that's bad. I'm actually like really grateful I learned a lot of that stuff because I think it's definitely made me a better musician and better guitarist. And it's a marvelous foundation, but it's not everything. Like, really, the only way you can actually get good at improvising is to actually just do it, and leave behind. The goal is to not be thinking about all that structure and that theory, because then you're not really in the moment. You're not actually riding the flow.
Yeah.
If you're like, oh, I'm thinking about this scale goes over this chord and this movement, blah, 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 blah. But like, if you can just leave that behind, no matter how much or little you've learned of it, I think that's where you can really get into the sweet spots of improvisation.
Yeah. I think for me, like the holy grail of improvisation is like truly free improv. It takes a certain type of space to be cultivated to like have that, to have in a group setting at least. you know. But I love being able to improvise where, you know, we don't talk about it at all. You know,
Yeah.
nobody has to ask me like what key I'm playing or
Yep.
what key we're going to play. How about we're just going to improvise and the key can change,
Yeah. Absolutely.
you know?
The chord progression can change.
Right,
And it's
right.
not like, oh, we're playing this over these 3 chords the whole time. Let's
And
see how it evolves.
I think what helps to me, what makes it really potent is the ability to hear any note and find value and like to be like, oh, I just played that one little note or these 2 notes, and you know there's something there that I can develop. Or you hear it from the other player, maybe you hear them do something and you react to it. You know?
Conversation.
Yes, exactly.
That's the magic of it, I think. When
So
you
that's
really,
great.
oh yeah, it's all about listening. That's the other thing.
Exactly.
People ask, like, how do you improvise? I'm like, well, most important thing is to listen to what's already going on or what the other person is doing, and then reflect it, mirror it, respond to it in some way. Like you start to create these patterns, because you know if there's no patterns and everybody is just playing over each other, like yeah, there's a time and space for that too, but it's mostly just going to be cacophonous. And
Yeah.
I've certainly been in my share of jam sessions that are like that, and it gets old pretty quick.
Right.
People are just like, oh, trying to play over each other. But the best jam sessions I've ever found myself in are when people are really tuned in and just like listening before they play.
Right.
That's when the magic emerges.
Yeah, listening to the sound as a whole, you know, listening to the whole group, and also listening for like the possibilities of what you're doing.
Right. Like, what's my part?
Right.
What can I contribute?
Yeah.
And sometimes the best answer for that is like, oh, silence right now.
Sure.
I've had many of those moments where I'm like, I'm about to play something, and then I'm like, I don't need to. This is good. Or I'll wait a little bit.
Back in the day, like one of my first visits to Asheville, I set up a like a sound workshop at the Crystal Music Co-op. I don't know if you ever knew about this place.
No. Sounds very Asheville.
It was down Chicken Alley.
Uh-huh.
And I titled the workshop "The Art of Listening."
Nice.
And like, yeah, there was a lot of people that showed up like really interested. And then there was one guy. He's such a character. And he just saw it on the Facebook, and he commented on. He's like, "Oh, here we go again with that art of listening. That's what this drum circle guy always talks about. The art of listening. I don't know what it means. I don't know how to work with that. Blah blah blah." It's just like.
Did he end up coming?
No.
Oh,
He's
too
like-
bad. He's the one who probably needs it the
Yeah.
most.
He's like, I'm sure you guys are gonna have a good time, but I'm gonna sit this one out. And he put this like all just like commenting on the event. I'm like, all right, buddy.
Okay. Yeah, sadly, the people who need to learn that the most are.
But that's so
resistant to it.
Asheville.
Yeah.
There's me who's like enamored with this idea of the art of listening, and then there's
Uh-huh.
already somebody else who's like jaded with the art of listening.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But I've been having lots of fun with my band, improvising, and and you know, I like to in my show I like to bring the compositions out, and you know, depending on the show, I might put those forward, and like having that as a precedent of the show. Then when we start improvising and stuff starts getting a little mysterious, it's like extra exciting, you know.
Absolutely.
And I've been so grateful with these guys that I'm jamming with, and just how we really support each other in that, and we all allow each other to just be ourselves, especially me, since my name is in the band. But that's
I'm so glad you're finding that.
Yeah.
It's hard to find people that you really gel with like
Yeah.
that and that can support that sort of thing happening.
And I've been in bands before where, you know, they were just limited in their capacity to allow that, or even just to allow me to fully expand. But yeah, speaking of you know, jamming,
Yeah.
maybe we got one more song to
We
play.
sure do. Yeah, this is a little bit of a different one than I would normally play, but since I'm
Did we-
here with Flint.
Did
Yeah.
we come to get down?
Yeah. This is a song I wrote based on a bumper sticker.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when I was in college, a box of like thousands of these little blue bumper stickers showed up on our dorm's front step one day, and they all said, "I came to get down." and no one knew where they came from.
Really?
Yeah. But I wrote a song out of it, and it's kind of just become my like standard, one of my jam songs because it's a fun one to jam to. So, you know, not the like most profound song I've ever written, but I had a super fun time jamming with you on this one last night at the open mic, so we should totally play it.
Yeah, you don't need to apologize for the profundity of your song.
It's true. Not everything has to be profound. Sometimes a song just needs to be fun, and this is a good. Yeah, this is always the one I pull out when it's like, oh, we need something to dance to. So
let me just rearrange a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I came to love everything below to above. All that's in the flow, I came to sing deep within my heart about everything. To live my life as art, I came to celebrate whatever's found. I came to rise up, I came to get down. I came to rise up, I came to get down. Yeah. I came to dance, uninhibited and wild, to take a chance, to play a life like a child. I came to stand for everything I care about, and to praise this land. Every seed that sprouts, I came to celebrate whatever's found. I came to rise up, I came to get down. I came to rise up, I came to get down. I came to know that I came to just be, to just be, to just be. Oh, I came to celebrate whatever is found. I came to rise up. I came to get down. I came to rise up. I came to get down. Yeah, I came to rise up. I came to get down. Yeah, I came to rise up. I came to get down. Yeah. Hey.
All right.
Yeah.
Samara, Jade, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me and for jamming
And
that tune with me.
I hope that what we have done here today will resonate, for years to come, for people to listen and, to find some fulfillment in what just happened.
Hopefully, or
I'm just fluffing it up at this point. But thank you, Samara.
Hopefully, they find some good nuggets.
Yeah.
Some good non-soy nuggets of wisdom.
Yep. Peace.
Nuggets.